Look, I'm walking towards you. Why am I doing that? Because I'm about to give you a show. Folks, a salute. A salute from this side. That's what they do on the other side of the planet in Australia, I think. I'm pretty sure I've got that right. And what I like to do for you guys, a double salute. Welcome to the show. My name is Chris, and you are watching the Weekly Spinner Rack. If it's your first time here, oh boy, you're going to I think you chose a good one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you chose a good one. But if you're returning, then I'm gonna give you a welcome back. We talk about the latest comic book news. For instance, if you're super super rich, you can now get a Batman Tumbler. We're gonna talk about the comics that came out this week, folks. A week with Ultimate X-Men by Peach Momoko, Absolute Batman by Snyder and Dragata, Helen of Wyndhorn by King and Evely. Those are just some of the books that came out this week. Like, what a stacked week. So much to talk about, but we also have something very fun. We are going to do an interview, which we do from time to time. My guest, You've probably read some of his books by now because he's worked for Marvel, DC, like Boom, Dark Horse. He's worked for everybody, okay? He's a writer. He's done some other stuff in comics that maybe I'll get some questions answered about that. But we're mainly here to talk about an upcoming book that he's got, Silverhawks through Dynamite. We'll get there, folks. Please welcome another bearded white guy with glasses. That is not me, Mr. Ed Brisson. How are you, Ed?
I'm doing okay. We're like a disease.
Yeah, exactly. We're like I'm older than you, but when I was a kid, there was a show called Smurfs, and if an evil Smurf bit you, you turned into like a purple Smurf. So that's what we are.
I remember that. I may not be older than you. I remember it quite well.
Well, welcome. Thanks for taking some time to talk with us. I'm excited. I was refreshing my knowledge of Ed Brisson, and I went back to your earliest work, and I realized it wasn't all writing. You broke into comics as a letterer or at least some of your earliest work was a letterer, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100% true.
I'm a huge nerd for lettering, good lettering, and sometimes talking about bad lettering. But how did you acquire those skills? Like that, it's not the most common thing that people go for in comics. Like, what was your background in learning lettering?
So I originally started. I wanted to be a comic book artist. I didn't want to be a writer. I was only writing because I didn't know writers. And over the years, I self-published a bunch of mini comics. I think people call them ash cans and such now. I did web comics, etc. And at one point, during my third stint at post-secondary, I went into a publishing program because I had this sort of idea that I was self-publishing a lot of stuff over the years. And I had this idea if I went through a publishing program, I could get a job with a printer. And I could, in my head, I thought I could print stuff for free off hours or something or at least I could get discount on printing to print my work because, printing's fairly expensive. And through the publishing program, we learned sort of all the ins and outs of magazine and book publishing and all that sort of stuff. And part of it was like I already knew Photoshop. I used to color my own work. Part of it was Illustrator. And Illustrator, if you're a letterer, that's your main tool. If you know Photoshop and you go to learn Illustrator, Illustrator is a pain to learn because everything that feels like it should be intuitive coming from Photoshop is absolutely not intuitive. So I learned Illustrator quite well. I learned pre-production. One of my other stints in post-secondary, I was in fine arts, so I had like a bit of background in some of the stuff as well. And even though I was writing, drawing, doing all that, I found that I could get work as a letterer fairly easily. This is 18 years ago. I started lettering. I started lettering manga and then sort of moved over to like doing stuff for Image and Oni and some other publishers. But yeah, it was mostly through doing that program. I learned Illustrator.
I didn't realize you did manga too. I'm sorry, I actually didn't come across that. Like, what
you know what?
Like stuff, what?
Well, that's not by that's sort of not surprising because I used to when I first started out, I did under a studio name.
Okay.
And so it wasn't just because especially when I was doing manga, it's really tough because you have to we had to remove all the kanji sort of sound effects, replace it with English, and that involves a lot of like fixing the toning. And so I ran sort of like I want to say it's like a studio, but it's not really. It's literally was like me and one other person who I would bring in to help me. And so I didn't want to have my name on it because I had someone else helping me, even though it was I was running the whole show. So I did it under a studio name because that just made sense to me at the time.
That's cool. That's different. Yeah, because sometimes I read a good amount of manga, and sometimes I look and I go, the letterer absolutely had to do some correcting work to like make things fit or just like cover up like the original lettering and stuff like that so that it's readable to the American audience. Yeah. I didn't realize you did some of that as well.
Yeah, I did it for cool. I was still doing that when I started writing at Marvel, so I think I did it for about 11 years.
Oh my goodness. Oh, so you were a letterer for a really long time. So now with like all that experience, do you ever like, say, look at your own books and go like, look, I'm not the editor, but we got to fix this. Do you ever like step in
terms of lettering,
going like, this is not where a balloon goes?
Every once in a while, I might have some notes, but I've been pretty lucky to work with a lot of really good letterers. So yeah, I usually don't want to. I don't want to be overbearing or anything about it, but sometimes things just look a little wonky and need a nudge. But
I'm just giving you a hard time. But that's actually
a really
cool background. Oh, got a little super chat mentioning you, so I'll just highlight that. John Dorsey says, "All hail, Ed." I'll be good and not curse in the first few minutes of my show. Brisson, all hail the Tropes Nation. Lovely to be here for this interview. Well, thanks for the super chat. That's very kind.
Well, thanks.
Yes, our pleasure. You also earlier on did a bit of, well, you just sort of talked about it, a little bit of like self-publishing and stuff. At this point, you're getting like regular work from a lot of publishers, but would you ever go back to that? Because self-publishing now versus nearly 2 decades ago or decade and a half, it's very different, isn't it? Like people
it is
crowdfunding and stuff. Would you ever go back to something like that now?
Yeah, I did. And actually I did at the beginning of the pandemic when nothing was happening. I kickstarted a book. I used to do a book called Murder Book, which is short crime stories. And I kickstarted with Alessandro Ranaldi on art a murder book graphic novella. So it was 72 pages, black and white crime book called Catch and Release. So we did that on Kickstarter. It was fun, but man, yeah, it's not, it's a huge undertaking. Like Kickstarter eats up your entire month, though, when it's running, and then when the book finally comes back, there's the all the shipping, and then having to like hound down people who've moved or who are just not giving you their address for whatever reason. It's a lot different than just self-publishing and showing up at shows, right?
Right.
But yeah, I would do it again, if I had the time.
That's cool.
Definitely not averse.
You've ticked off a lot of different genres at this point. If like we just looked at a shelf of nothing but Ed Brisson books, crime, like you just mentioned, but also plenty of superhero stuff, plenty of sci-fi, horror. Is there a favorite genre that you feel most comfortable writing, or is there anything that you still have to tackle that you'd be like really excited by? Anything like that?
I think like if I'm left to my own devices, if I'm left in the wild and just writing whatever I want, it's going to be crime. I'm a big fan of crime fiction in all its forms: comic books, novels, film, etc. And horror. I'm a big horror fan. I grew up a massive horror film junkie. And I love writing horror. I'm working on some horror stuff right now. That's a genre I don't get to do enough in, that I really want to do more in.
Okay.
And so if if I had my way, it would be primarily those two sort of things.
Those are some of my favorites too, and I feel lucky that we live in an era in comics where those genres are growing compared to where we were 20 years ago or something like that. I mean, those are both very impressive to me, Ed, because with crime, you typically are going to involve maybe some sort of a twist. And then with horror, I find it's very challenging to find a way to like give the protagonist something that they want other than survival, you know? So like those are two very tricky genres to sort of do character development out of. When you're creating something like that, I'll get to a question here.
Sure, yeah. No,
are you thinking plot first? Or are you a character first sort of thing, person where you're like, I want to see somebody change? Or are you thinking like, I've got a big idea and I'm plugging in the characters that fit that story?
It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Like stories just come in different ways. Like the horror book that I'm doing started out as like a plot in terms of like this idea that like and I don't want to say too much about it because it's a book that I'm doing with the publishers, but it's not going to be out for at least a year. Okay. But the idea was kind of like, I grew up with like I watch a ton of horror, like too much horror growing up. But like one of the things I loved as a kid with all the franchises, the Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Halloweens, et cetera, et cetera. And I had an idea that was kind of like I wanted to do a book that felt like that, but like we kind of came in halfway through the series rather than starting at the origin. And I can't say too much because it's a very specific idea that brings us there. That was a lot of fun. So that one was really just like, here's this plot idea I have, this kind of story, and I just kept reworking it over the course of like I started working on it about 2 years ago, idea wise. Wow. And what it is today is very different from what it was when I started, because when I started, I had this very sort of basic idea and I built a story around it that kind of led me deeper into the story and this lore and made me rearrange the whole story around this thing that I kind of discovered while putting it together. But the story with, the characters, the protagonist came very early to me. It's very much a story about personal responsibility and guilt. Guilt is something that seems to creep into my work a lot, probably because I went to Catholic school as a child.
Oh, well, there you go.
But it's always like kind of a theme that pops up.
I appreciate you sharing something like that. It sounds like you probably work in several different ways depending on the project, because this one you're saying, you're trying to crack the full story for almost 2 years. If you're on a monthly title, obviously you can't like spend 2 years.
You don't have that
just
luxury,
keep going. So what that makes me wonder is, do you have a typical work day? Do you sort of like work within a set to like defined hours? Do you break your projects up, or is it just sort of like deadline based, or how do you break up your day?
Yeah.
How do you structure your day?
So it's changed a lot over the last year, because a year ago, almost to the week, I started working in video games. So I'm also writing in video games. And so I am doing that Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it's a full 40 hours a week. And so I've had to do is split up my my work day for comics, right? Because I don't want to be behind the keyboard 18 hours a day. Actually, when I was lettering, that was a big thing. Like when I was doing manga, I was pulling down a lot of 18-hour days, and I felt like I did my dues. I did like 10 15 years. Like when I was first self-publishing, I had a full-time job and I was doing a lot of stuff after hours. and I'm older, and I'm just like I don't have the patience for it. So I try and get up early, and I try and write for about 2 hours before I'm starting work.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how my work's going, sometimes I'll write for an hour over lunch. More often than not, though, I watch a show. Like I need something. Sure. I need to get away, and then I'll try and write for about 2 more hours after work.
Okay.
But I break things down into terms of like I need to get this many pages done per week.
Okay.
And I try and give myself 4 days of writing, 1 day of revising. I come back the next week and 4 more days of writing, 1 day of revising the entire thing. And hopefully by doing that, I could get a script done usually every like 10 days, I think. It used to be before I would write a script over the course of a week. I can't do that on top of doing the video game stuff. I mean, I could, but it would be terrible.
I mean, at a certain point, you have to balance that against what you do to your body. You know,
sure.
You got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And I do have you can't see it. I don't know why I'm pointing around the room. This is a sit-stand desk, so it stands up.
Good for you.
And I have a walking pad. So I actually, sometimes when I'm working, I just have it like at a slow pace. So I'm moving my body at least because.
Oh my God, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
So many people in comics, like even when they look healthy, they've got some unhealthy habits. That's very impressive. Yeah. I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself. That's only going to extend your career.
Let's hope. And I feel lucky that like when my job I had before comics, I worked in health and safety for 10 years. So like I have all this sort of stuff that's, in the back of my head all the time that I know, and I'm not always doing it, but I know that I should be doing it at least.
Let's get to, I'll call it the fun stuff. You've got a book coming up, Silverhawks. End of January, correct? End of January is when it, yeah.
That's right.
So I think did we just pass final order cutoff? Help me out there.
No. I think final order cutoff is not until
I'm lost on order
December.
Okay, good.
We have weeks, but saying that everyone should go order it now. But yeah.
So let's talk about it because I definitely grew up watching Silverhawks. I liked Silverhawks more than Thundercats. I don't know if that's controversial. I liked Silverhawks. I watched it with my little sister. We were very amused at like all the weird characters because once you get past Silverhawks, it just had this world populated by villains and space cab drivers, et cetera, villains on a prison. Like, what's your take as far as like maybe if you had to pin it down to a genre? What's your take on what Silverhawks is?
Well, what Silverhawks is going to be ours that we're doing is that the way we've been kind of pitching it or talking about it is we're kind of doing Untouchables in space.
Okay.
Mon Star, he's a mobster, right? Everyone who works for him, hardware, and
Yes Man and
Poker Face, etc. Yeah, yes,
Molecular.
Yes Man, Molecular, which is going to that character. I'm not going to murder him, but almost if I have to type that guy's name again, I might murder him because it's MO-CU. I don't know. There's a lot of dashes in his name, and it's so frustrating. Although I finally realized I could just do a find and replace and fix it at the end. Anyway, so yeah, we're pitching is kind of it's Untouchables in space. It's a crime book. He's a space mobster. That's from the cartoon. We're not making that up. We're not imposing that on it. There's space cops, right? They're the Elliot Ness. I'm blanking on Sean Connery's character. I think.
It's been too long since I watched it. Great.
Kevin Costner was Elliot Ness, right?
Yeah. He was Elliot Ness, but I forget Sean Connery's character's name.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Whatever.
But so it's that we're gonna lean into the crime of it without really losing the shiny, fantastical, fun space adventure type stuff.
Yeah.
Where our plan is to really the cartoon doesn't do, it does a lot of things that are great and a lot of fun that I really enjoyed when I watching it growing up, but it doesn't really get into like the backstory of any of the characters very well, and so that's the thing so that's where we're kind of going to start. So Sean Connery was Malone. There we go. So we're going to start and sort of build up who the characters are a bit, and like how their lives are affected by Mon Star, or members of his crime syndicate like Hardware or whoever. And then we're like slowly going to bring the team together. We're not going to start like Silverhawks aren't there issue 1. They're not there at the gate. We want to really take the time to build it. So it's going to take a few issues before the team's together, and sort of training together and getting ready to go out. And that's the kind of stuff I like, seeing how this stuff comes together and why they come together, rather than just here's your team and off they go into space to fight this guy.
Well, that sounds great, because honestly, like, there was plenty of unexplained stuff. Like, we never really understood exactly how the Silverhawks became cyborgs, or what anybody wanted. So like, if we could learn a little bit more about backgrounds, I like that. Here's the most important question. Does your version of Silverhawks have gravity in space, or do people just fall forever and they can breathe in space like the cartoon?
So that one, we haven't had to really show that yet, and that's actually been a discussion. And someone just mentioned it popped up there, and I'm going to touch on it really quickly about how barren space felt.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to do a lot to populate space, because like, if you watch the cartoon, you're not really sure what it is that like the Silverhawks are protecting half the time, because every time they land on a planet, it's just a rocky landscape. But like, they talk about Bedlama in the show. We're going to show Bedlama, which is like this sort of Earth-like planet that a large part of the story at the beginning is going to take place on. But we'll see, the planet of the mind where the Copper Kid is from. We're going to see that planet. We're going to see a lot of things that we've been talked about. We're going to see like Poker Face's casino a lot more, rather than him just showing up at Mon Star's base. So that's something we're excited about. As for the breathing in space, I think my instinct is to go a bit more realistic with it, and you can't just breathe in space, and we'll have kind of some sort of contraption. But like, like Hardware and them are aliens, so maybe they're like, we've got aliens and robots and Mon Star, maybe they have the abilities to. Maybe the Silverhawks cybernetic enhancements give them the ability to breathe in space.
No, that could make sense. It was for folks that didn't watch this show in the 80s, good animation, good voice work, like fun adventures. It was just like the rules were never really, they just never really quite defined them. So you'd have this like space cabbie Seymour going like, you know what I mean? And if somebody stepped out of his cab, they just fall forever. And that was horrifying to me as a kid. I know it was supposed to be a joke, but it stuck with me. It stuck with me. Are you able to also like potentially introduce new characters, like vary it up with stuff like that?
Yeah, so the first issue is actually going to feature a bunch of new characters. So in the cartoon, they're sort of hinted at Stargazer and Condor having a past together, having fought Mon Star in the past, and being responsible for putting him in jail. And so we are kind of introducing this idea of like a proto Silverhawks who had to battle him the first time.
That's interesting.
But they're older. They're a little bit older. They're a little bit creakier this time around. But we're going to see them in the first issue anyway. So there'll be some new characters, some fresh faces. I don't want to get too crazy with introducing like anyone new to the Silverhawks team quite yet. There are some plans, but like we have a pretty big cast to start out with, and
it was a big team.
Yeah, we really want to just give them an opportunity to breathe and allow like readers to sort of like get caught up in who they are and hopefully become attached to these characters before we start expanding out the cast. I feel like they're the initial cast is pretty great. So there's a lot of fun to have with those characters.
And you've got George Kambadais on art, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's just
really
killing
good.
it.
He's been doing a lot of great stuff at Dynamite. Great artist. Very versatile in honestly a sort of a wide variety of styles. When I haven't seen like his interior pages yet, would you say that it like mirrors some of the comics, or have you guys updated it to be like grittier? What would you call it?
Yeah, it's interesting because he's got a cartoony style, but he has like a little bit of like the way that he's doing is a little bit heavier with shadows, a little bit more grit to it. It's not like, and just like gritty is one of those terms that like I think everyone interprets in different ways. It's not, we're not going like super dour sort of really depressing Silverhawks or anything like that. It's just a little bit a little bit more grounded, I would say, rather than saying it's than the old Silverhawks. It's a little bit more grounded in terms of the action. Like the action is crazy out of control. So, but like the characters and stuff, just so it's a little bit more grounded. So it's a little bit heavier in shadow. It's got like, yeah, I don't know. It's great. He's doing great. But when he's doing the action scenes, it just explodes it out. And it's just incredible. He's really great at that.
I can't wait to see what you guys do. I mean, when space is your canvas that you can set stories on all sorts of planets and outposts and literally there in space, you've got a lot of you've got a wide canvas to paint on. So I think that should be fun. I always liked how the Silverhawks would just sort of like do this and they'd like have their metal masks. So maybe for the next convention you go to, Ed, you can like have like a rolled up piece of paper attached to your glasses and you can just roll down your own Silverhawks mask. That's my do-it-yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my do-it-yourself marketing idea.
Perfect.
And, so I'm excited. Good. So final order cutoff. We still haven't hit it, folks. I will edit the description of this episode when we finish recording, and I'll put in the order code from previews if you want to give that to your local comic shop. Dynamite also has an option if you go to their site to like add books to your cart. So there's like sort of the action items I'll give. Is there anything else coming up that we should keep our eyes out for from you, Ed?
I've got that Apex, Thundercats Apex one shot that's out shortly, I think in the next few weeks, which is one shot with Raphael Labotsko, where we're kind of diving into who Apex is, what his deal is, what his history is with the Thundercats, what he's after, and all that sort of stuff. It's a really fun sort of almost Unforgiven style Thundercats Western that we got to do, which was a lot of fun. And I think I've got a Creep Show issue with Skybound that's coming out in December or January. And then I think in the next few months I should have like 2 or 3 new announcements of stuff that's coming out. So it's been a year of working on stuff that kind of bottlenecked, and now it's all coming out. So
I hope that feels good that you're at this point where like, you've got all these projects in the works.
Yeah, it feels great. It feels weird because, like I said, with the video game stuff, it feels like I'm like kind of off the radar sometimes because I'm working so much. But like, I've been just churning away at stuff up behind the scenes, and to finally have it coming out, it's awesome.
Well, I'm happy for you. We're excited to see what you create there. There's a lot of crossover, of course, with people that love games and people that love comics. But hopefully you don't leave us in comics, because I think you've been putting out a lot of great stuff. I'll just say on a personal level, really, really enjoyed The Displaced. I thought that was a very special book. I didn't have time to necessarily focus on that tonight, but I really liked that. I'm pretty sure I know a lot of people in my chat room liked it. Like, it got talked about a bunch. And I love it when you do a little bit of horror and crime. So like, I know there was horror in like Creep Show this year, and hopefully you can keep doing some little things like that here and there.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you for your time, Ed. Best of luck with Silverhawks. Very excited for it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
See you later.
All right, chat. Thank you very much for your kind words to Ed throughout that. I'm excited to see that other people are excited about Silverhawks. And again, The Displaced was a really good book. That came out through Boom Studios. That's a really weird book where an entire huge town disappears and everybody forgets that they existed. A weird sci-fi mystery that's really creepy. Also wanted to acknowledge that I did get some super chats and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Steve. The inevitable $2. Thank you though, Steve. You're the best. And $2 for wearing the same shirt as me. Yeah. I think I got this at like something like Walmart or Target, but I was like, oh, well, I love Godzilla. That's a nice classic. Zilla. Thank you. We've got plenty of fun stuff to talk about tonight. Let's see. We've got a bunch of news. So let's see. Bear with me. I'm shifting some things around on my screen so that we can pull up the news of the week. There we go. Look at that. We've got an excuse to talk about two very different Batmobiles this week. The Tumbler and the new Absolute Batman Batmobile. We're going to be talking about both tonight. Let's get into it. First thing I wanted to mention, I'm kind of impressed at how successful this has been, but DC Comics has announced more in their compact comics line. I didn't realize I used such a tiny font. Sorry about that. Anyway, I can just speak to it. So even if you can't read, you're still going to understand this. Let's see. Audio has no bass tonight. Very tinny sounding. Really? Give me 1 second. Let me double check something in my settings. I think that I'm using my proper mic and everything. I don't know why that would be. The audio sounds like it normally does to you? I don't know. I gotta think about that one. So, okay, I'm getting a couple different things. Hey, it's my sister. Lovely to see you, Gene Z. Didn't know you were here. All right. I'm just going to have to struggle through it. I'm going to struggle through it either way. So compact comics, 8.5 by 5.5, basically more or less manga size, certainly something that you could literally put in your pocket, and $10. $10, really good price. So all of the previous books that they have released in 2024 are going back to print. That means that they have sold out and that like people are requesting more. And then for a bunch of, they announced something like 15 titles that will be published in 2025. I just have like 10 of them. Authority, love that book. You're going to get to hear me talk to somebody that worked on it very soon. Very soon. The next episode might have Brian Hitch on it. Okay. Superman Batman book 1. Now, I never read their team up book by Jeff Loeb, but and Ed McGuinness, but for $10, I probably would. Let's see. DC, The New Frontier. I made a whole episode about that on Comic Tropes. Strongly recommend it. One of Darwin Cook's best pieces of work. Just a great DC book. It's its own thing. It's great. Just fantastic. A Wonder Woman that was from like the Rebirth era with like Cliff Chang on art. Death. Oh, with Vertigo coming back, that's pretty cool. In fact, they should probably put a Vertigo label on it. But anyway, Harley Quinn, Wild at Heart. Pretty sure that is, I should have double checked, but I'm pretty sure that is from the fantastic run with Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. So such a great team. They really did a great job. If you ever are like, why is Harley Quinn so popular? Read the Palmiotti Conner version. Fantastic. Really, really fun. Batman the Long Halloween. Yeah, that's a classic. Why the Last Man? So there's another Vertigo book. And V for Vendetta. Not that Alan Moore's happy about it, but I think that V for Vendetta might be my personal favorite book by Alan Moore. I know Watchmen gets most of the attention, but I think my favorite is V for Vendetta. And We Three. If you haven't read We Three by Morrison and Quitely, my God, it'll wreck you, but it's a fantastic story. Fantastic. I mean, sometimes some people are into like the collecting aspect of comics. Fine. Very cool. A lot of different ways to do that. Some people just enjoy reading them. And this is definitely for the readers and to expand it to new readers, because for $10 you get some pretty thick stories. I think it's a good value. I think it's a good way. I picked up a book that I had not read before. I got Far Sector, which was a really cool sci-fi book. Boy, was that a thick guy for $10. I didn't feel like it was too small. I feel like I could definitely read the word balloons. The art is still clear. I think if you got a little smaller than this, you might start having issues, but this works. Anyway, I like it. I like it. Oh my God, Brian Hitch has so much that he can teach us. I can't wait to share that with you folks. Just to be clear, I now have 3 episodes recorded of comic tropes that I just need to edit for you folks. Got a deep dive into some stuff by Chip Zdarsky. I've got an interview with Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch, and I've got an interview with Peach Momoko. So pretty excited to share that stuff with you guys. I just need to get it edited. Tease. I'm a tease. So what am I talking about when I say buy a Batmobile? Well, for all those millionaires and billionaires that watch my show, this is the news segment for you. Warner Brothers has announced an opportunity to buy a Batmobile Tumbler. It's a replica, but it's drivable, but not street legal. There's a lot of extra steps that go into making something street legal beyond being drivable. We're talking things like airbags, crumple zones. It does have a seatbelt, but I don't know if it's like, one that's certified by, the DOL of every state. I don't know. So they're going to sell 10 of these, and they're priced at a very affordable $2,990,000. So there you go. You got $3 million that you're like, what am I going to do with this $3 million? Like, buy some candy? Go on a trip to Borneo? I don't know. Wait, I could buy a Batmobile and drive it around in my mansion's backyard. There you go. A measly $3, a steal at twice the price. Here's some technical specifications on it. It's 15 feet long, 9 feet wide. That is actually decent wide width. Weighs over 5,000 pounds. That's more than a Toyota Camry. 2-seater. It's got a 6.2 liter engine, 525 horsepower engine. Not bad. Delivers 486 pounds of torque. So that's a lot of torque. That's a good amount of horsepower. Are there 8-cylinder sports cars for the everyman out there that have more? Absolutely. That's still more than most cars. That's still a good amount. That really is. They'll have a smokescreen delivery system, it says. Question that. Imitation gun turrets. Oh, really? Imitation? Thanks for that clarification. And jet engine simulation, noting that there will be no flames. So what is the simulation there? No, they think it's bigger than you might think. I do. Mobile. Yes. If it was a Keaton Batmobile, I might consider it. That is a long drive. That thing must have driven so weird, like having the wheels that far apart. I wonder. Yeah, and it's actually got Kevlar and carbon fiber and sheet metal fiberglass. It obviously must have custom windows, which means replacing them would be very expensive if you, God forbid, you get a chip. Then again, if you're not driving it on the highway, the chances of that are pretty small. These tires, they said that they've got big swamp boat type tires. Swamp vehicles is what I meant, like an ATV or something. Custom wheels, custom rims. I don't know. It looks like it would be a blast. I have to admit, I just like the Tumbler. Some people didn't like it turning into sort of a tank. I like the Tumbler. I thought it was cool. It does not have a detachable bat bike. Can you believe it? For that, you might need to spend another $2 million. That said, if somebody can afford a $3 million car, those are the kind of people that might just invest some more money to make it street legal. It would cost a lot, but they really, I mean, people that have that kind of money. So, will you see me driving one of these to a local comic convention? No, believe it or not, I don't have a spare $3 million. Yeah, I know. You were about to get it, right, Rob? You were just about to, and you were like, wait a minute. The front doesn't detach into a bike. Sorry, that's not a good value. I'll give you $2,750,000, but no $3 million without the Bat Pod. He may have. That sounds familiar. Yeah, you don't get real gun turrets. But you know what? I think that somebody that could afford this could probably afford to retrofit it with actual gun turrets. Let's see. You could make money with appearance fees in parades or conventions, maybe. Yeah, that would probably take a while to make $3 million back. Yeah, like I'll show it to my local convention and get like, what, $5,000? Might take a few hundred years to make that money back. I got a kick out of it. That's actually coming through Warner Brothers themselves, by the way. Like they've got like this weird high-end exclusive collectors crap division. That's what they call it, collectors crap. And it is not a surprise to me to see them go for things like this because their movie division is hemorrhaging money. Oh, they're hurting. Yeah, the 66 Batmobile was definitely street legal. You just don't necessarily get the flames in the back, but yeah. I don't know if Batman's ever had an outright bad Batmobile. There's some that I am not a huge fan of. I didn't like the one from like the Snyderverse too much. I don't know. It wasn't anything new enough for me, but I generally like a lot of the takes on Batmobiles. All right. Still talking about DC stuff. They announced a new Green Lantern Corps series. Not a lot to say about this yet, but they announced that it will come in February, and it is by the current Green Lantern writer Jeremy Adams, so it's going to obviously tie in pretty closely to the main title. But he has a co-writer on that, Morgan Hampton, and they've got two artists, Fernando Pasarin and Auclair Albert. Not super familiar with them, I'm afraid. Apparently, in the Green Lantern book, I'm sure some of you know this, I didn't know this, but the Green Lanterns are going up against something called the Fractal Lanterns, and the Fractal Lanterns are building a power battery. This is like, if you don't know Green Lantern at all, I am speaking in Greek to you right now. Hal Jordan and John Stewart gathered together a bunch of Green Lanterns to head into space to destroy it. I think that it's fair to say that this is also just a reason to have both Hal and John in Green Lantern books when the HBO show comes out. Oh, okay. Pasarin has done Green Lantern before. Good to know. Yeah. I love, like, if you go back in the comics, his original one, I think, was just like a red car. And then, like, his early real Batmobile-looking Batmobile was just a sedan with, like, a big Batman face attached to the hood. I loved it. You're looking forward to the Fractal Lanterns meeting the Jack-O-Lanterns. I think you should be writing the book. That's pretty darn good. What else do we have? An Elon Musk biographical comic was made in France. Not likely to get here to America. People are kind of afraid of the guy with more money than anyone else that seems to be a very petty asshole and does lawsuits for anybody. In fact, on a comic-related note, he was dating Amber Heard, and apparently DC, Warner Brothers, didn't want to put Amber Heard in the Aquaman sequel. They were like, you know what? I don't think we need her. And Elon was like, if you don't put her in there, maybe I'll just buy you. And they were like, I guess we're finding a role for Amber Heard in Aquaman 2. So, the book is called Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter. It's a graphic novel biography by Daryl Cunningham, and it was recently published by Delcourt in France. Thank you, Bande Dessinée, for giving us classy comics all the time. On his Patreon, Cunningham wrote this: publication in other countries looks unlikely. I'm told that there was interest from various international publishers at the recent Frankfurt Book Fair, but there was a concern over possible legal consequences. Delcourt apparently, had their lawyers look it over, and they're like, absolutely publish it. But a lot of people, here more in the Western-speaking countries, were like Western English-speaking countries were like, yeah, I think we're just gonna keep hands-free on that one. That's not exactly a hot take. He's an idiot. He's when people are born rich, they get opportunities the rest of us don't, I think. And what do you call it? I know Cunningham said, after researching him forever, he goes, I think the thing that I'm most struck by is just how kind of average to incompetent he is and how much success he's had with that in mind. But yeah. At a certain point, you fail upwards. I guess it is a little. Excellent. Oh, I don't think this one would be. I mean, he's in the cabinet of the upcoming administration. He won't allow anything like this on a public school reading list. Well, we'll keep going. I've seen those up close at work. I am so unimpressed with it as a vehicle, folks. It's a truck, and it doesn't have basic things like a skid plate. It has hardly any trunk space. It's so weird. The panels don't always line up very well because there's no quality control apparently at Tesla. I'm stunned. All right, enough of me bad-mouthing Elon Musk. Thanks for watching my last show. I'll move on. This one was just fun to talk about, even if the comic itself didn't wow me. A Dawn of the Dead actor, this guy is writing a zombie comic. Ken Foree. Do you guys know Ken Foree? He was the star of the original Dawn of the Dead. One of them, anyway. He was one of the survivors. So he's written a zombie comic that has a campaign that's up now on Kickstarter. He's been in a bunch of stuff, too. Rob Zombie's put him in a bunch of stuff. He was in the Dawn of the Dead remake in a cameo. He's honestly, I thought he was great in the original Dawn of the Dead. Super, super charismatic, likable, one of the few good people in the world. He gets to say that classic line in the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I actually also like. It's got the same plot, but very different characters and tone from the original. But I have to say, it might be my favorite Zack Snyder movie. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. No, he was not. Anyway, so the story is set 20 years after a zombie apocalypse and focuses mostly on the teenage children of some original survivors that made it to an island. And there's definitely a character that seems to be based on Ken Foree named Dad. That's just what the kids call him. He was one of the original survivors. And then there's the campaign link. Just so you guys know, it's only up for 3 more days. So if it's the kind of thing that interests you, go for it. I like the story idea. I love Ken Foree, and I'd like to support him. I just didn't love the art personally, and it might be a deal breaker. I don't know if it's for me. Oops. I'll find it. Thank you, Joe, for the super chat to correct me. Hold on. Wait, did he? I'm looking at all the super chats, and I don't see one from Scott Green. Sorry to miss it. Yeah, it didn't come through on my end somehow. Might be a technical error. I don't see a comment from Scott. Sorry. As long as I'm talking about Kickstarter stuff, I'll talk about briefly the Jonathan Hickman one. So Jonathan Hickman, Mike Huddleston, Mike Del Mundo, they created 3 Worlds, 3 Moons. Shared sci-fi universe. They released it on their 3W3M Substack. They've got a Kickstarter going. It's an anthology sci-fi series. Looks good. A lot of talent on it. They added a new tier just a few days ago to get original art by Jonathan Hickman. And I don't know if you remember, but when Hickman started, he did draw as well. So that's some of his artwork there from, what was it called? The something news. It's not coming to me right now. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Scott. This is for your time editing. I sent a duplicate $10 chat earlier, but it didn't appear to show up, and it had hit my bank. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry that I didn't see it. I bet it did go through, but I didn't see it. No. Either way, I really hope you get both. I'm sure I will. That's super, super kind of you. I don't know. I'll double check later. I'll double check. Thank you. That's sincerely appreciated. Very kind of you. Very kind. Nobody needs to do that, but it touches me. It really means a lot to get some support from my viewers like that. Really means a lot. All right. Okay, a couple other people said they didn't see the original either, so I don't know what happened there. It might be a Google thing. Oh, Alphabet. All right, so they added some original art. There were going to be 5 pieces, 11 by 14, full figure drawings. You don't get to choose, like Jonathan Hickman got to choose what he wanted to draw. $1,000 each. $1,000 for, but Jonathan Hickman writes a lot, doesn't draw a lot, so it was pretty rare, collectible. They instantly all sold out. You can't get it now. Oh, thank you, Jamilin. Yes, the Nightly News. That was the title I was searching for. He drew that as well as wrote it. So that's from one of his covers. There's 9 days left on that one. But to be clear, they've done pretty darn well. They're fully funded at we'll just round that up and call it $113,000 of their initial $50,000 goal. So good for them. Good for them. He also drew Pax Romana. There we go. Would you rather have a comic signed by the writer or the artist? I think that would come down to the book itself, because I'm a fan of both writers and artists, so it would just sort of depend on what the book was. I don't think I have a preference between the two per se. I probably follow a few more artists than I do writers, but there's lots of both that I admire. Right. They also added a soft cover tier, so a little more affordable than their original hardcover. I think that's smart, but it's only going to help them. They've got over a week to go. They're doing fine, but some top tier talent. You want to see a sci-fi book by them? There you go. Speaking of big books, there's going to be a series of Madman Omnibuses. Mike Allred's comic. And he's had his stuff printed in omnibuses before, but there's going to be a new, revised, updated version. We're talking June of 2025. Dark Horse is going to start publishing all 6 omnibus albums. First volume includes, in chronological order, Madman's stories from his first 3 comics. That does not seem to include Madman's I don't know what to call them. They're sort of appearances that he did before he had a comic. It was more like Allred exploring the ideas of Madman in a way. I mean, it was his character. It just wasn't heavily tied into the ongoing continuity once the comics started. $50 basically. There's going to be tons of extra material. And keep in mind, Madman is old enough that it had pinups by Frank Frazetta, Jack Kirby, Frank Miller, bunch more. That's kind of cool that some of these, golden age artists of comics did work for Madman. If you haven't read it yet, first of all, I strongly recommend it. I've had Mike on this show. We did a long deep dive on Madman, on comic tropes. Really, really cool. It follows Frank Einstein. He's a deceased man. He's brought back to life. He has weird psychedelic adventures in Snap City. It's great. $50 never killed anyone. Used cars. That was Kurt Russell and who? A comedian, right? Robin Williams? Probably Robin Williams. Yeah, that's going back. I think I strongly recommend them if you've never read it before. Yeah, it's kind of like a first draft, and there's a word for that. Like when you sort of create a concept version of something and then you create a revised, finished version. But I can't think of the term. It's and I don't know if that's just me struggling for a word or if I'm becoming old and forgetting things. I don't know. Madman is so awesome. Oh, I didn't think to list the dimensions, but I'm pretty sure they're oversized, like close to artwork sized. Robin Williams is Cadillac Man. Prototype. You know what? I think you're right, guys. I think that I was simply thinking of Prototype. And now that you type that and I say it, that sounds right. And I think I was just trying to search for almost like a more complex word. But yeah, proof of concept or treatment definitely would have worked as well. Because he did do some stories. You know what? I'm just repeating something. Watch my Madman episode on comic tropes. So yeah, 13 inches tall. Denzel just casually dropped that he's going to be joining the MCU. Okay. I'm sure the MCU is always happy to take an A-lister. He was on Australia's version of Today on the press tour for Gladiator 2. I haven't had time to see it. I'm curious, but I have had zero time to myself. Denzel said that Ryan Coogler, the writer and director of the Black Panther movies, among other great movies, he's writing him a role for the third Black Panther film. What role? That's what we can talk about in a minute. But he just said, yeah, Ryan Coogler is writing me a role in Black Panther 3. Got it. It will be one of Washington's final movies. He's announced that he's going to retire soon. He's going to do a handful of movies, but at this point, he's just choosing projects based on people that he wants to work with. He doesn't need the payday anymore. He wants to retire, I guess, before he's just old. And yeah. So, it could be an original role, right? If it's an original role for the movie, none of us are going to necessarily guess what that is. But there's also a fair amount of characters in Marvel that this could be. There's been priests. There's T'Chaka had, I think, a brother that was very briefly a Black Panther, so it would be like an uncle to T'Challa. There's older, black men superheroes in Marvel, like Blue Marvel. Any guesses? Anyone you think would fit within something like this? I mean, he could play Dr. Voodoo for all we know. I don't know. He may very well, but for now, he's retiring. Which Denzel character was more menacing? Frank Lucas in American Gangster or Alonzo in Training Day? I lean towards Training Day, but those are both some pretty scary characters. I think Blue Marvel, he's got the look and it's an interesting character. And I put that out on social media, like, would he be good as Blue Marvel? But admittedly, Marvel does have some similar characters on that power level already. Like they're going to introduce Sentry real soon. They've already got like, Thor and Captain Marvel. Like, does Marvel need another god level superhero? I don't know. It doesn't matter as much if it fits within a story. It's not, the MCU is just a movie at a time, and it's less impactful than creating it in a shared comic book universe. Happy Pants T'Challa from The Priest and Jack Kirby comics. I think that, is Happy Pants like an autocorrect? Anyway. Yeah, he could be a down-to-earth, like for all we know, just like a politician or a priest or an engineer. He could just be something like all of that. Hard to say. Let's see. Did you know the guy who created Blue Marvel also created the Underworld franchise and voiced Black Beetle in Young Justice? I didn't know any of that. No. Oh, that's what Everett Ross called him. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember the name of the character that you're talking about, but I definitely remember reading those stories, and that's why I said, like, yeah, I keep saying like a priest, and I just don't remember the name of the character right now. Dude, when Kirby came back to Marvel in the 70s, he went pretty big and bonkers, and I kind of love it. That like cosmic frog thing that they're all going for in the Black Panther comics. Kevin Graveau. Robbie Robertson. Wow. I don't know how that would fit. Oh, yes. Akibi. That's the character I'm thinking of. Yeah, he could play a previous Black Panther, too. That would be kind of cool. That would actually be really cool. Like, if he had to, like, suit up again because they didn't have, like, I don't know, a Black Panther? I don't know. I've said this before, and maybe this is controversial. Yes, King Solomon's Frog is what I was thinking of. Thank you, Rob Beersary. Yeah, that would be fun. I think that they should take some of those stories, like take from Jack Kirby and go nuts. Chadwick Boseman was incredible. Okay, he was such a good actor in general, and specifically for Black Panther. He was regal and charming, and just everything he needed to be. But I do think that when he sadly passed away, I really think it was a mistake to not recast that character. I think that Black Panther, the character, was very important to, and I'm talking T'Challa, not just, the role of Black Panther. I'm talking about that character, T'Challa. I think that character should still be in the MCU. And if they've got a way to retcon it, I'd go with it, because I think that was an important character and should still be in the Marvel universe for the movies. I think it would be a benefit. I really do. And I'm not saying anything bad about, I actually think Wakanda Forever was definitely a good movie, and it was an interesting story. It was very interesting to see like what a nation would do and how people grieve. It benefits in some ways from what happened in real life. But I think that the character is very important and has a lot more to do in the Marvel universe. I think that like they need it. That's just me. All right. And I just wanted to say this, though, as long as I'm talking about Chadwick Boseman. Boseman once said that there would be no Black Panther movie without Denzel Washington, because Denzel had, he hadn't taken credit for this or anything. Chadwick Boseman gave him the credit, but Denzel had once paid for Chadwick Boseman to have a semester of acting school, a summer of acting school. He just saw potential in Chadwick. He paid for his tuition. Pretty amazing. Okay, let's see. I disagree. I think Boseman meant more to people in the real world than T'Challa meant to the MCU. Okay. I'm open to other interpretations. I think the grief of the director and actors changed the course of the movies. I think that they did too. And I don't think it gave us a bad story at all. I really don't. I just think long term that it would be a net benefit to have such a powerful and important character. And a couple people are agreeing with me. Black Panther is more of a title than an individual's name, or is that not right? No, it is. It is basically anyone that eats the heart-shaped herb and typically is from the royal family, or at least has like proven themselves in combat, can be Black Panther. Yeah, it is really cool. Chadwick was fantastic. Marvel was lucky to have him for as long as they did, actually. That's definitely an outside the box casting choice. Maybe. Secret Wars probably will do a little bit of a reset. I think that they'll keep like everything that they like and allow them to like redo anything that they want to like update. So we could end up with, say, a recast Iron Man or Captain America for all I know. And we'll see. I don't know the episode of it. I would just, if you type in Comic Tropes Madman or Comic Tropes Mike Allred, you should probably get the result. I think that the thumbnail for that is Mike Allred against like an all red background. Like it's just red and black. Didn't hear about this. Did you hear Ridley Scott has teamed up with Machine Cake to produce 3 graphic novels? I don't know who Machine Cake is, so I don't know. Bombay. Am I allowed to say that as like a fan? I just realized maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. James Robinson is teasing more Starman. Actually, I should have had this back up in the DC stuff, but that's okay. Writer James Robinson spoke with Comic Book Club Live about his upcoming Dark Horse comic, Welcome to the Maynard. But while there, this was interesting. He mentioned that there could be more Starman, which he had done with artist Tony Harris. So here's a piece of what he said, a quote. Well, hypothetically, if there were any more Jack stories, there was a time when Jack goes to Japan. And so, hypothetically, if ever there was another Jack story done by DC with me and maybe with Tony, it would be set in that flashback period so that he still is happy, so that he is still retired happily with his kids and wife in San Francisco painting and just being Jack. So he's saying he's found like a time frame that he could set a story in, but he wouldn't be like continuing past where he ended Starman. I think that's probably the safest way you could tell more Starman stories by fitting it within the existing continuity. If you haven't read it, by the way, James Robinson and Tony Harris on Starman, pretty awesome run, pretty awesome comic, just putting it out there. All right, how about new versus old Thunderbolts? Get ready for a whole series of things that are both tied into a Marvel event and tied into Marvel MCU stuff. Synergy, we'll call it. So Thunderbolts Doomstrike is going to be a 5-issue limited series. Now, it's written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, and they've had a lot of success writing together. Illustrated by Tommaso Bianchi. Good. Nice cover here by Linneo Francis Yu. The newest Thunderbolts team in Marvel, there's been several versions. There's a current team. It's led by Bucky. It's got Sharon Carter. It's got Black Widow, Songbird, U.S. Agent, some other weirdos. It's a Black Ops team, like I say. Well, this series is going to feature that team going up against the original Thunderbolts, which Dr. Doom has assembled, including Atlas, Fixer, Moonstone, and if I'm going by this cover, Citizen V, who was Baron Zemo. I don't know. Could be fun. Is that it? I guess that's it. So yeah, what do you think? Does this sound like a fun idea? Getting like, the Thunderbolts from the movie up against the original comic Thunderbolts. It's a weird idea, but you sort of get to have your cake and eat it too with that. I have not seen the Mike Mignola cover for One World Under Doom, but I am very curious to see it. It does feel very Marvel. The original Thunderbolts, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that disagrees that that is the best version of Thunderbolts. But if we've got to wait to like assemble together again, supervillains sort of operating as heroes, or at least operating for like a government, an evil government of that, it's a decent idea. Freaky idea. A team up against Doom with all of them actually sounds like a great sort of final act. Now, I hadn't even considered that. I don't know about Beetle. They didn't mention it. Well, I sort of know what you mean. It's out of character for Dr. Doom to have his own strike force, except there are a few instances of him teaming up with other villain characters. And in this One World Under Doom, he has the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme and has taken over the world. He just has. There are going to be pockets of resistance. I think that, he's still one man. And I could see how he would need to change up some of his strategies if he was going to try to maintain control over an entire planet. I don't think you can do that with just Doombots. But we'll see. If it is Zemo as Citizen V, I would like that because I know Zemo is a schemer that would be trying to trick Doom, and I also have no faith that Zemo can outsmart Doom. He's a very effective villain in terms of getting terroristic stuff done, but he's not an effective long-term planner like Doom is. I think it would be fun to see. But tell you what, I'm going to take a small pause here because this episode has a sponsor. And that is Dynamite Comics, and they've got a fun comic that I want to tell you guys about. Actually, instead of me telling you about it, how about I have the writer of that comic tell you about it? Let's watch.
In January, return to a world where humans never existed, and all other mammals learn to speak and wear clothes and live in relative harmony, except when there's crime. And that's what officers Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are out fighting every day. Come with me, Jeff Barker, back to the world of Zootopia. Artist Alessandro Ranaldi is bringing our cast to life like Chief Bogo, Clawhauser, and that big rhino who does the fist bump. Deirdre Kelly is coloring this wild mix of environments, even little Rodentia, and Jeff Eckelberry is giving voice to our favorite characters. They'll sound in your head just like they did in the movie, and I'm writing it, in case I didn't mention that. Let your bookstores know now to pull it for you because fans have been waiting a long time for more stories, and it's going to sell like popsicles to little hamster businessmen. Really? It's only available in North America, US territories, the UK, and Ireland. And remember, editor rhymes with predator.
Zootopia was definitely one of the better Disney movies that I've seen in the last few years. I would totally be up for more adventures set in that world because there are so many story potential ideas there where every mammal is a member of society, but there's such a difference in scale and abilities and stuff. I don't know. It just, the world itself fascinates me in terms of how it would work. And I think that it's a great idea to have central characters in this be sort of like peacekeepers. I think that that's a blast. Thank you, Dynamite. Looking forward to seeing what Jeff Parker and Alessandro do. It means that in the world of Zootopia, predators and prey are sort of a distinction. So it actually ends up being a little bit of a story about class. And he's just talking about, like riffing on editors and comics. Have you not seen it? It's really good. It's really good. I like it. Pretty sure it's available in Canada. It does depend on the execution, but the internal pages look good. They look like, animated and hustling and bustling and colorful and vibrant, but also like nice and clean. It isn't just strictly just Disney, but it's nice and clean and cartoony. I think it looks fun. Let's see. Oh, talking about animated movies, I guess. I did not see The Wild Robot. I've had so little time to do anything fun for myself in the last couple weeks. I would love to see a movie. I just haven't had any time. The one that I did carve out time for, but even that is going back a little while, I watched Look Back on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure. And that's only 1 hour, but it is a movie based on the one-shot manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto. And by the way, folks, I'm just going to take a moment to endorse that again. Look Back is a sad story, but it is hand-drawn animation, and it is some of the best hand-drawn animation I have seen since, I'll say like since Akira, like in 86 or something. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. Beautiful. And that makes sense because the story itself is about a pair of artists. And I think if you were making a story about artists, then the artists that are animating that movie are probably a little motivated to bring their A game. It's great. Please check it out. Let's get back to news. Another One World Under Doom book is a new Weapon X team. This is crazy. Ready? So, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Cable forming a new strike team. Thank you, Steve. Yes, the manga is brilliant, but honestly, the anime movie, it's fantastic. Just an incredible movie. Weapon X-Men, first of all, great title. Second, it's got a team that's formed to proactively rescue mutants and attack enemies. And of course, their first mission takes them to Latveria. Just from this cover by Alex Ross, we can also see, I guess, Warpath and Chamber are on the team. I don't know if there's going to be anybody else. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I think it basically is a riff on X-Force, but I kind of like Weapon X-Men. Listen to the team on it. Joe Casey, and art by Chris Cross. Good team, fun premise. Yeah, you're getting all the big names that people love. I think it makes sense. And again, you know, what was that? Like this last one? Well, we've got the Thunderbolts movie coming out. And this one, we just had, of course, Wolverine and Deadpool. Now we're getting a comic with them. It's a sausage fest. Well, who knows? Maybe there's another team member on it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like who's available, though. There's so many X-Men teams. I don't know. Add somebody new. Tell you what. Why don't I talk to Joe Casey? Tell you what. In 2 weeks, why don't we talk to Joe Casey and learn a little bit more about it? And one more One World Under Doom book that also clearly ties into movie stuff. Red Hulk is getting an ongoing comic book. February, Marvel's going to launch a Red Hulk book, but I do like this. Writer Ben Percy, artist Jeff Shaw. Love Jeff Shaw. Love Jeff Shaw's art, so that's pretty cool. Story is going to feature Dr. Doom imprisoning General Thunderbolt Ross in Latveria to exploit his military expertise. He's going to be forcing Ross to run all sorts of war scenarios so that like Dr. Doom can be prepared for anything that comes up against him. Ross's only hope of escape is unleashing Red Hulk's strength like never before and leading an assault on Doom's kingdom from the inside. Okay. I guess that's it, but yeah. Well, maybe when Red Hulk gets angry, he gets hot. So actually he can create sparks when he punches things. Because he creates sort of bits of flame and stuff. So yeah, he's a little different. Moving on. Done with Marvel. Going to talk about Random House launching a new comic book imprint. Ink Pop. Little bit of the logo here. New line under Random House Graphics for 5-year-olds through teens, in other words, the young adult market. It aims to bring international flair, these are their words, kids' graphic novel market with manga, manhwa, and global webcomics aimed at younger readers. Launch titles are going to include one manga series, one manhwa series. I Want to Be Your Girl, seen here, by Umi Takase, follows a girl whose best friend, with whom she's secretly in love, comes out as transgender. Relevant. Volume 1 is scheduled for summer of 25, and then in My Life as an Internet Novel by Han Ryo-yu and A. Hyun, a girl wakes up in a fictional love story where she's the main character's best friend. That's funny. Who knows, when you've got magic and science. Would Doom do this if Red Hulk weren't about to become relevant? Who knows? Who knows? You forgot one word there, Rob. Ba. Umi Takase is excellent. Yeah, probably will get banned in like Florida and South Carolina, but that doesn't make it bad. In fact, I'll just tell you folks, if you ever see a book show up on a banned list for a school, go to the store, which still carries it, and read whatever's banned. Doesn't mean it's good, but I personally am always curious about why is something banned. There's probably something you can learn from that. What else have we got for news? Raina Telgemeier. Maybe the biggest thing in comics? Maybe. Her comic is getting a massive print run. The Cartoonists Club. It's not just by Raina, just to be clear. It's also by Scott McCloud, the guy that wrote books about comics that are absolutely taught everywhere. Two incredible cartoonists are making this book about comics, The Cartoonist Club. It comes out in April through Scholastic Graphics. Listen to this print run. 800,000 copies, almost 1 million as a first print run. That's the demand level. But then again, these books are sold in like every bookstore and every Walmart and every Target. I mean, to say nothing of the comic book store marketplace. So 1 million is a lot. 800,000 is a lot. But that's just amazing for an initial print run. Just incredible. That's so many kids reading these comics. Scholastic has a lot of quality control in place for what they publish. And it was really interesting, I think, a couple weeks ago when we got to have Jamar Nicholas on talking about his book, Leon, which is published through Scholastic Graphics. I thought that was really, really interesting and cool. But wow. Way to go, Raina and Scott. Just incredible. The comic, if you are curious, it features 4 friends with very different skills learning how to collaborate. How do you collaborate? And it deals with the challenges of bringing a comic to life. So even though this is aimed at young adults, this might actually be very interesting to adults that are into comics because it's by comic book creators writing about the real challenges of how you actually get a story done, like all the steps that it takes. Yeah, 800,000 is Batman numbers during the TV show Heights. That's a nice way to look at it. It'll be good. It just will be. They do a lot. A few more pieces of news, and then I want to talk about some incredible comics that came out this week. Maybe one of the best weeks of comics coming out ever. So many good books. A G.I. Joe variant sold for $800, and there's somebody out there looking to get even more for it. Let's talk about that. So, G.I. Joe #1, one of the books we'll be talking about today, came out this week from Skybound. Different take on G.I. Joe. There's been the cartoon, there's been the original comics, and there have been like some small animated series, some smaller runs of comics by different publishers. But this is like a much bigger deal. Like this is selling incredible. Anyway, so this comic came out, and to promote the comic, one thing that Skybound did was they screened the 1987 animated film G.I. Joe the movie. And that was down in LA. And then they went over to a nearby comic store in City Walk area. I think Things from Another World. There was a Q&A and a signing with writer Joshua Williamson. But this cover was produced just for the people that went to the event. An exclusive cover by Tony Fleeks. It is an homage to the original animated movies cover. If you've seen the movie, you know that this is like Falcon, and down here is like Serpentor and Globulus and stuff. They only printed 200 copies apparently of this cover. Pretty tiny print run, pretty tiny. One sold for $800 on eBay, and there's another listed right now for basically $1,300. I don't know if that one will go. I was surprised one went for $800, but it did complete the sales. Great news. Doc came out of his coma. If you guys don't know, let's talk about that real quick. G.I. Joe the movie was going to be the first animated movie by Hasbro, but due to the vagaries of animation, Transformers the movie, which started later, actually came out first and hit theaters, and it didn't do that well. It's remembered now as a bit of a cult classic, but as somebody that saw it in the theater back then, I'll tell you, like when Optimus Prime died, it like really threw a wrench into things, and kids did not love that. And Hasbro saw that and were like, oh, well, in G.I. Joe, we kind of killed off the main character, Duke. Maybe we shouldn't do that because kids really hated it when we did that to Optimus Prime. So the movie had already been animated, basically. So this was their solution. When Duke clearly dies, he gets a snake thrown by Serpentor, like it turns into like a staff. It clearly impales his heart, and there's all this blood, and the life goes out of his eyes, and he dies. And then the voiceover is Scarlet holding him going, he slipped into a coma. How she can diagnose that, I don't know, but that's what she says. And then at the very end of the movie, a long distance shot in the Himalaya mountains of the G.I. Joe team, like, emerging victorious against their bad guys. And you just hear this radio from like Doc, the medic, going, great news, Doc came out of his coma. It's no reaction from anyone, just like, Doc came out of his coma. Duke. I probably can't do the Cobra Law battle cry, but I'll give it a shot. Cobra la 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 la. It's okay. They sort of warble it faster. A snake to the heart. Yeah, so it was pretty funny if you watch the movie and then you know that it's just ADR done at the last minute to try to like go like, yeah, Duke didn't die. He just went into a coma. But watch the animation and it's pretty clear they animated him dying. Anyway, it was a fun movie. At the time, I really didn't care for what they call Cobra Law. They retconned Cobra to say that Cobra Commander was like from this race of total like weirdo monster people that only use biology and animals and stuff, like no technology, no computers, no metals. Everything was organic. And I didn't love that. But in the Energon universe, they found a really good way to use Cobra Law that I really like. Yeah, they just took one of the many dead Cobra soldiers and were like, nobody's using this. Clementine, Book 3. They shared a little bit of details this week, they being Skybound. Going from one Skybound thing to another. From G.I. Joe to Clementine, set in the Walking Dead universe. So the final book in the Walking Dead spinoff comic, Clementine, is going to hit comic book store shelves June 25th. So we're just like a little over 6 months away. The story is going to feature Clementine and her friends finally in a town that seems safe. She's got a new mentor character apparently in this, I think called the Gardener. But of course, danger is never far away in a world with zombies. Tilly Walden writes and illustrates it. I love the first 2 books. It's technically all ages, but it's very cool to get more stuff in the Walking Dead universe, focusing on different characters. It also shows to me that, like, I really think that Kirkman should probably do another Walking Dead book just with different characters. They've done it on TV. He's allowed it, like, you know, in young adult format here with a character that was originally from the video games. I think that people would like it. I think that you just set something in that world with totally different characters in a different part of the world, and I think that, like, it would still do pretty damn well. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. It's a little different than the games, you know, because in the games you're sort of making the choices and you're in control. And by the time we get to the books, you know, Clementine is a little older and, you know, she's missing a leg. She's gone through a lot. I like the books a lot. I do. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure artist talked about AI, and he did not have anything nice to say about it. Big surprise. What artist would? So there's a new book called Hirohiko Araki's New Manga Techniques, How to Create a Villain. Okay. And in it, Araki slams AI imagery for its dangers. Listen to this. He said that he recently came across some images that at first he thought maybe was some of his own art, but from longer ago. He was like, I looked at details and like how I draw eyelashes, and I feel like that's very distinctive, and this had it done right. And then he was like, but I didn't remember it, and I kept looking, and all of a sudden I realized this isn't like old art that I'd forgotten. It's AI. Like it was almost fooling him. Here's a quote, a translated quote, so it might be a little off. But it comes from like the wiki for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Art reflects the times, and manga is one example of that. I'd agree with that. See the style changing? Seeing this world of con artists appear in manga could very well mean that we're headed for a future world dominated by fraudsters. This type of evil in today's age will undoubtedly end up impacting manga down the line. Harsh words, but I think it needs to be said. So, Araki definitely draws weird. I had a hard time breaking into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure at first because of just the strange poses that he gives his characters. They are out there, man. But his art does evolve over time, and he's a good storyteller. So over time, like I just sort of like went with the weird art, and I got into the story. Someday I'll probably do an episode about it on Comic Tropes. It's and you can see an evolution to his art. It's always kind of weird, but it becomes very confident as well as intricate as it goes along. Good for you, Hirohiko Araki. I appreciate you like using your platform to speak out against this garbage stuff. Did you guys see that Coca-Cola used AI to make a commercial recently? And it's all like 1 second images, because that's like about the most that AI can do before it gets too weird. And it's full of just off-putting things. Like there's like a truck coming by with a Coke logo on it, and the perspective is off because that was clearly added later. AI probably couldn't put the logo on. There's like a shot of like Santa holding a Coke, and he doesn't like have fingernails. He just has fingers without fingernails. And like the Coke is sort of sliding just a tiny bit from the, it looks weird. If you pause it, you can't see anything necessarily wrong with like one image. But like when it moves, your eye can catch that something is off. I hate it. I saw that Coke thing, gross. Coca-Cola commercial is gross. Okay. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh. Yeah. Right. He developed a very unique, weird sort of style, but that's okay that it's weird. It is different, and AI just regurgitates and blends stuff together. I'm not a fan. That's what's weird to me is like they clearly have enough money to just make a commercial. I don't know why they would even do something like that. Yeah, exactly. Everything just sort of like shifts just a little bit. It just looks weird. I agree. Yeah, like sliding is such a good way to put it. I felt like the Coke bottle was sliding a tiny bit in the hand, and the trucks are like moving in sort of a line, but also sort of sliding. It just doesn't know how to do it, and I don't want them to get it right. Like, just no, forget it. Forget it. Last piece of news I want to talk about, I'll end on something positive. Shonen Jump announced a pay raise. I think manga artists are very hard worked. So a pay raise, good, let's see. So their publisher, Shueisha, announced a pay increase for manga artists beginning this month, November. They issued a statement on their official Twitter account. The editorial team explained that the increase in fees was determined based on profits generated by the magazine, both in print and now digital. So the new minimum manuscript fees have been set at 20,900 yen per page for basically black and white pages, 31,350 for color pages. There's not many color pages to a Shonen Jump, just to be clear. What does that translate to? I basically, we are talking a little bit more than what like sort of starting what do you call them? U.S. rates would be yen to dollar. And I'm just going to pop in the exact amount. So we're talking. No, that's not right. Is it? Oh, interesting. The yen has fluctuated more than I thought. According to the calculator I'm using right now, that's $136 basically in US dollars per page. But that can't be right. I don't think that this calculation. Well, it says that it's up to date. Oh, look at that. I guess the yen and the dollar are getting closer than the last time I saw the. The dollar used to be a lot stronger. I thought that would be close to about $200 a page, but they're saying $135. U.S. rates vary so wildly. It's really hard to find what they would be. Yeah, well, I know the yen has been down, but like if it was down, then that would mean that like in dollars that would be higher. The translation I'm seeing is that for 20,900 yen, that's about $136 per page, which doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot because we're talking the Japanese economy versus the U.S. economy. That food and housing doesn't cost the same over there right now. But I am surprised. This basically, from what I was just looking at, the yen is stronger than the last time I looked. The dollar is still stronger than the yen, but the gap is closing. You used to almost be able to just move the decimal point over to round down a small amount, and that would basically be yen to dollars. But that's really not. It's less than I thought. Wow, they were getting paid peanuts. This represents a rise, though, I'll show, from 18,700 yen for black and white, 28,050 for color. So that's how much it's going up this month. That's not bad. Yet, oh, okay, my wife is watching, and she just said, Japanese yen is worth low USD. So that has changed a lot since the last time I was literally in Japan. No, it isn't, but it is more than what they were doing. Just to be clear, they are talking here about basically sort of like starting rates, and you do get annual raises if you're really popular and you're selling better. These pages can go up. These rates can go up. They're talking about sort of the minimum. Okay, so those are the minimum, which are lower than I realized. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Right, about 400,000 yen for a chapter of work, but they do a lot there where, like, here in America, you almost definitely do things like thumbnails. You probably do. But in Japan, you absolutely have to. You have to show an editor your thumbnailed pages to get approved to then do the pages. So you're probably drawing it like about 3 times. You're drawing like maybe a stick figure like thumbnail type thing, then the actual art, and then the inked final art. Whereas over here, you might do thumbnails for yourself, but you generally don't have to get that step approved by editors before you move forward. You can just sort of go like, here are the pages, and they might do like touch-ups. Right. But starting rates, you're probably not using an assistant. If you look at like most starting manga, it is a bit emptier. They typically do not use assistants until you've got like, something that's not going to be a one shot or something that you've got an ongoing weekly comic and it makes sense to hire other people. These are like the bottom. How much is this in US dollars? We're talking starting rates of about $136 a page. Not much. Not much. And you're doing it on a weekly basis. You're doing like something like 10 pages. Minimum wage in a lot of places is $7.25, but boy, that is like, I don't know how you could survive on that. I really don't. That's everything I have for news, though. Just something worth talking about. It's minimum wage, which probably means that the average person making minimums in manga probably still has some sort of a day job, which I think you do see that story a lot. Like, they're either fresh out of college or they're doing this at night and having a day job until it makes financial sense. It can vary wildly, like how many pages a story. Like, because I've seen some that only have to do maybe 8 pages a week. And then there are some that do more. I'm excited about this next segment. We're going to talk about the comics that came out this week. Let me turn on my second camera, which always takes a moment. I just don't want to kill the battery by having it on while we're doing everything else. Present extra camera. And I'm going to adjust the zoom. Yeah, you definitely can't survive on it, really. You can't. I mean, my wife thinks that we're doing pretty well, but I feel like I'm not. I feel like I am surviving. And I've got 2 jobs and she's got a good paying job. I don't know. The world is crazy. There's other people that have it tougher. Let's talk about the comics that came out this week. Before I do that, I'll do this real quick. My friend Matt at work lent me this manga because the guy at the store recommended it to him. And he's like, give it a shot, see what you think. It's called Tank Chair. And kind of like it implies, it is about a badass guy in a wheelchair, okay? But when I read this, and this is a fast read, by the way, folks, because it's mostly action. This felt like the most Jim Mahfood comic ever because it is just bonkers. And I mean that in the most positive way. So there's this guy, Nagi, who was like the world's best assassin, and he got injured protecting his younger sister. And he's in a wheelchair and he's in a vegetative state. He only comes back to sort of alertness for short periods of time when he senses his life is threatened. So his sister will sometimes literally try to kill him just to wake him up. He'll always be able to stop it. And it's all about their adventures. He gets in like this armored wheelchair and goes up against things like ape men and top tier assassins. I don't love all of the art in this, but it was pretty funny and pretty crazy. Yeah. This is just every time a villain really, really intends to kill him, all of a sudden he gets stronger and more powerful. And then he goes back into his vegetative state. And what is happening is his sister believes that if she has him go up against a big enough threat, maybe he'll wake up permanently. So she keeps having him do weird assassination jobs, going up against guys like this sniper with weird robotic eyes and all sorts of crazy nutcases. Here he is using his wheelchair to anchor himself and sort of shot put a ball the same distance that the sniper is shooting at him. It's silly. It's funny and over the top and ultra violent, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It is a fast read, though. It is a fast read. Imagine trying to kill someone just so that you can talk to them. That's basically what happens. And like, it's all about like intention. So like if somebody, it's not just being in danger. Somebody literally has to want to kill him for him to snap awake. And then he like when this assassin tries to shoot at him, like, and he's aiming and everything, Nagi's in a vegetative state. When he pulls the trigger in that like less than a second, we're going to probably talk about between the bullet getting fired and reaching him, he senses it and like can dodge it. It's silly. Wait, is this real news? Because I did not come across that. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur had an episode, I guess, of the cartoon series about a trans teenager that got banned by Disney because of the results of the election. Ooh, if that's true, that's horrible. So they approved it, but then they were like scared of the fallout. Terrible. That's terrible. Folks, in a week with like the debut of G.I. Joe, a new issue of Daniel Warren Johnson's fantastic Transformers that I've said before is going to be like probably in my top 10 comics of the year. A week where we got Absolute Batman #2, which is a blast. Ultimate X-Men, where Peach Momoko just blows me away every month with what she's doing. I think my pick for the best book of the week was not Arcbound. It was Helen of Wyndhorn. This book is so damned beautiful. And it's got so many cool ideas about sort of a supernatural Conan the Barbarian with magic world. Like, for instance, Othan, who's sort of like, he's the grandfather of the main character, Helen. And he's raised her now to like understand this secret world that he can go to where he's just a badass warrior. In this one, he kisses this lady who's a goddess. And it allows them to swim underwater and have like protection. They can like breathe underwater. It's beautiful because this guy's so emotionally distant from his daughter. I gotta fix this. This is not very precise for you folks. Let me see. Is that a little better? I hope that's a little better. I was trying to see if there's like a view where the art is bigger and I'm smaller. How do I make this one bigger? Can't find a... That's not bad for now. That's not bad. Yeah, not just riding a whale, a tusked whale. It's just, they keep coming up with new environments and new weird ideas, but look at this artwork. And how clever is even like the composition of this panel. This is about them climbing down into the trenches, and to have these narrow panels really helps emphasize the height, and then each one just staggered just a little lower. It's subtle, but it's a great way of showing characters moving down into the depths. Huge shout out, by the way, to the colorist. I've mentioned this in previous issues. Colorist is Mateus Lopez. Just beautiful book. Different color schemes depending on the environment that they're in. I don't want to spoil the whole story, but it's a beautiful, beautiful story of an emotionally distant and damaged grandfather and granddaughter finally finding a way to connect. Okay. And God bless Tom King and Bilquis Evely for their creation. I loved it. Here's what I didn't expect. Okay. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. Too bad it's only 6 issues. This tells a very complete character story. I was asking earlier in the interview, plot-based versus character-based. This is a very character-based story where by the end, the characters are a little bit different. And they could only have gone through that change by going through the adventures that happen in the pages of these issues. And it tells in that regard a complete story because the characters end at a different place than they began. But I also was like, okay, well, this emotionally distant grandfather, he's not like super like lovey-dovey or anything, but he's now definitely a lot more connected to his granddaughter. I thought that there was a letters page, but I guess not. So he goes through a change, and she becomes less of basically like a drunk with no purpose into becoming like a warrior herself and having a purpose bigger than herself. So I go, wow, perfect. 6 issues, great. Well, Tom King just posted, he's like, I love this world too much. Bilquis and I plan to do more stories. And I went, well, where do you go from there, actually? That'll be a problem for the next series to answer, okay? I don't know. In some ways, I don't know what else you could do for a story with this. But I guess I have to give them the trust to earn that. It's fantastic. It's so good. I know. I've been talking this up as one of my favorites. He wouldn't say it if he didn't have a plan. That's probably true. Oh, yeah. Definitely has a P. Craig Russell vibe to it. That type of thin, but lots of lines, but very thin, delicate lines. It's such a special book. Conan and P. Craig Russell art. Yeah, I can see those. I can definitely see that. I recommend it, folks. Fantastic book. Your favorite series of the year? It might be mine. I got to think about that at the end of the year, but it's way up there. The fantasy world is just fun dressing for the family drama. Exactly. That's why I'm saying it's a character piece at its heart, but it does take us through some amazing worlds. Bilquis Evely has just really, really wowed me. She's incredible. Just incredible. Not just as an artist, but as a storyteller. What she does storytelling-wise is gorgeous. Love this book. I think this might be my favorite of the week. Oh, how could it not? I'm sure it will. You trade weighted. Totally fair. I'm sure you'll love it that way. I really am confident in that. This Transformers issue has guest artist Jason Howard. But thematically, it connects to the previous issue, which was a flashback, because this is all about Starscream. Starscream it has been found, he was just absolutely demolished by Soundwave in a battle, okay? Well, some of Destro's people from G.I. Joe, Destro's people have found him, revived him, and he's missing his lower body, so they've hooked him up to a hiss tank. But they also filled him with bombs. And they're like, if you don't do what we say, we're going to blow you up. And it's all about Starscream slowly gathering his own team of Decepticons who've all sort of been abandoned by the leadership. He gets Astro Train, and he gets the what are these guys called again? There's Onslaught and Swindle and Vortex and Blastoff and Brawl. I forget. These guys are one of those teams of 5 that combine into a bigger robot. Anyway, Combaticons. Thank you. Oh man, I would call it Rise of Starscream. Starscream's pretty clever in this. Let's just say he's a weasel, and I won't give away where it goes. But it is all about Starscream coming from the absolute bottom, just barely alive, no allies or anything, to coming across some other Decepticons who've sort of been wronged by their team, and sort of uniting and rebuilding himself. It's a blast. Starscream is a very entertaining character. He doesn't think about the little details. He only thinks big picture, how to be the leader, how to have more power. He misses the little details a lot. But he's powerful and he's still pretty smart. So he gets a bunch of other Decepticons behind him and sort of figures a way to increase his status. For a guy that starts the issue, literally being missing an eye, missing his lower half, being stuck to a tank that other people remote control, it's pretty fun seeing him improve his situation. Yeah, that might be fair. He has a plan, but not a backup plan. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. Oh, the bad guys are pretty awful to each other. I feel pretty bad for Destro's men here that think that they're about to deliver, an incredible asset to him, and things don't go their way. Fun issue. Not the best out of every comic this week, but a blast. This is still a very, very fun comic. We'd probably call this a table-setting episode so that some really crazy stuff can happen, but it is a blast. It is a blast. That said, pretty excited to see next month with Jorge Corona back on art. Let's talk a little bit about G.I. Joe. You're hearing this review from a guy that loves G.I. Joe, and specifically, I love the Larry Hama, A Real American Hero comic book version of G.I. Joe. I loved the toys as a kid. I do collect the classified versions. So that is all to say that I'm potentially resistant to a version of G.I. Joe where they exist, with Transformers in it, because Transformers are potentially so much more powerful, and there's a lot there. By the way, I just want to show Tom Riley's double-page spread, show the back with a bunch of these villains. And while that's probably still my favorite version, because it's still going on, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, I do like this version that's set in what's called the Energon universe with these shared characters. Let's talk about this one specifically and a couple of the things that it does that I like. One, they introduce a new character called Risk. We don't know too much about him other than in this story, he definitely, he's very different from Duke, who's by the numbers, okay? This guy, Risk, is in the Middle East or something at a casino and just uses hands and fists to go against, some gangsters. And he's very hot-headed and in the moment. He's very effective and skilled. You might almost call him cocky, except he seems to back up that bravado with actual skill. But he'll prove to be, I think, a good foil for the main character, Duke, who's, a real Captain America type. And he's, I like what they've done with Duke here. They've decided to make him the main character. And he isn't a super soldier, but he definitely is at the peak of human ability. So for instance, this bad guy helicopter attacks, a headquarters building, and Duke just runs into action, giving people their marching orders for how to handle a situation. And he's going to take out the air cover. He just jumps and attacks the guy on the helicopter. And that kind of action scene is on one level over the top, and in another, it's just it's just awesome to see. And the art is fantastic. There's another couple of things that I liked in this. One is the actual team that they've got. For instance, this version of G.I. Joe is just starting, and they have actually recruited Baroness. She is not working for Cobra yet. Can they trust her? She's got a big crime sheet, but she's very skilled. And Duke thinks that she's an asset worth recruiting to the U.S. government side. Okay. Could be a mistake since we know what Baroness is like in the comics. Meanwhile, on the bad guys, this is Destro's main henchman, Mercer. In the cartoon, Mercer was a G.I. Joe. But right now, he definitely works for Cobra. So we've got two characters that could switch sides. Will that actually happen, or are they just playing with our expectations as, fans? I don't know. They could literally stay on these sides and just create conflict within the team. I don't know. But I like some of those decisions of who they're using. I mean, look, we get Stalker and Duke, Clutch, Rock and Roll, Cover Girl, Hawk is the leader. So you get a bunch of elements from G.I. Joe that you might know, but here's some things that are different. First of all, no Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes hasn't really shown up or been mentioned in any significant way in any of the miniseries or spin-off, whatever. Most popular character, nowhere to be seen, still interesting, okay? Cool. They're not leaning on the most popular stuff right out the gate. Their big difference for Cobra Commander, he's a total weasel, but there's a couple differences in this Cobra Commander from the cartoon version you might remember. He's a bit of a scientist. He creates a lot of sort of weaponry to, at the very least, protect himself, okay? Armor for his claw. His helmet has some countermeasures in it. And he understands energon. That's the fuel that powers Transformers. Well, he's found a way to have it power weapons. In the comics, they'd fire lasers, which seemed mostly harmless. Well, in this, they fire lasers, and they're very, very dangerous. They just cut through anything. I think that that's a cool way to integrate something from Transformers in a very important way, but make it more dangerous. Yeah, Cobra Commander does have a few cybernetic parts. They're standing on top of a Decepticon. Yeah, let me switch to that. Well, that's Megatron's arm anyway. I think it's just meant to be... Oh, well, this is Soundwave. But it's just meant for fun. I don't think it's anything literal. I don't know if they will get a slump, but you're right. They're holding Snake Eyes in reserve. Mercer was a lowly Viper who switched sides. If he turns here, it makes more sense that the Joes would use him. This Mercer is definitely more than a lowly Viper. He basically leads the Vipers, which are sort of the shockwave troops, the grunts of Cobra. Yes, it's a great... Joshua Williamson has at least studied the file cards and said, well, what could we sort of do a little bit of a twist on to still have it accurate, but have it... emphasize certain parts. Experimental weaponry, there we go. This is a Cobra Commander who found a deactivated Megatron, took him to Cobra Law, and promised Cobra Law that he could find a way to weaponize it and spread the word of Cobra Law. But Cobra Law was super offended by that because they hate technology. In fact, in the Void Rivals comic, Cobra Law has sent a mission into space to basically find these mechanical beings and destroy them. They're just this weird cult that absolutely hates technology. It's fun. I don't think that they'll cross over right away. I think one or two characters, but I think that we're quite a ways away from a big fight. I like some of the decisions on who they're using for a team. There's a couple newer characters like Chameleon here, I think probably has been a figure and been in some media, but she's a much more important character in the comics. Destro's super, powerful and smart. He's as great as he always is. He's got a sense of honor, which separates him from the rest. But Cobra Commander is a little smarter, and he won't retreat. He's not a coward. I like that. The thing I'm not showing you is this ends on a huge surprise cliffhanger thing that definitely surprised me. Not every character in this book is safe. I'll just keep it at that. So that was cool to see that there are stakes, even though we're dealing with a little bit of sci-fi concepts like the energon lasers. It's definitely still got stakes. It's got stakes. They flew into space with their organic stuff. They've got like an organic spaceship. They can do anything like, and probably more than like what we can do with our technology. They've just figured it all out with like animals and organic stuff. It's weird. In G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero by Larry Hama, yes, he was a former used car salesman. In this, that is not necessarily who he was. He was somebody who just like, was ostracized from society. He might have been a used car salesman, but he was sort of found and taken in by Cobra Law and taught their ways and like pledged to be loyal to them. But he was just using them to like have resources. The end was a shock. That could make sense that there's another Scarlet miniseries with Snake Eyes, because Scarlet is still out there. She's not part of the team. She's like doing ninja stuff. Cobra Commander in the limited series and in this is a very effective villain finally. Well, he has been an effective villain in the comic, but he's still sometimes a bit of a coward. But he's smarter in the Larry Hama comic. But in the cartoon, he was a buffoon. In this, Cobra Commander is dangerous. You can see how he could like form a terrorist organization and manipulate some of these people into working for him when they don't really trust him. Anyway, I talked about it a lot because I like it so much. I do recommend it. It's different. I've got a friend, Tim, who's a big fan of G.I. Joe, but not a big fan of Transformers. He tried this and, liked the art and liked some of the moments, but he doesn't like how Transformers, in his opinion, overwhelms everything. I've got a different point of view. I don't think that Transformers overwhelm all of this. I think that they're integrated with just a bit of technology, but that's me. I'm just telling you another point of view. He feels that it's a little too Transformers-y. I will say this. Tom Riley on art is taking no shortcuts. When he has like a bunch of soldiers from the bad guys show up, he probably could have like gotten away with a framing shot of like having like one helmet here and like some small guys in the background. But he draws a whole squadron, and he does that a bunch. It's impressive. And I love this 2-page spread that outlines sort of the mission from both sides. Duke and Destro both talking about what they're going after, a piece of technology. It's really well done. A lot of great layouts. The art is fantastic. Fantastic. I wouldn't say Cobra Commander beat Nemesis Enforcer, but he survived like arguably the most powerful character out of like G.I. Joe and Cobra, and he eluded him very successfully. Absolute Batman. So many sort of new takes on old ideas, like we're revising. There's a reboot of G.I. Joe and Transformers. There's a reboot of the Ultimate Universe, like with like X-Men. There's a reboot now of Batman. And I'm all for it. These are some great characters that can get weighed down with too much continuity, in my opinion. As soon as you become beholden to that continuity, it becomes a goddamn albatross. It becomes an albatross. Whereas when you can start fresh and use the best parts and then do something new, as long as there's not too many like rules in place, but at least a few, there's a lot of good things you can do. I really like Absolute Batman. I think my favorite take is Absolute Wonder Woman, but this is really cool. This is a Batman who has some new gadgets. For instance, this Batman is fighting some thugs in an aquarium and gets like pinned by all of them up against the wall. Well, he's got some small spikes that can come out of his back, and he punctures the water just to like, give himself some breathing room. And then this is salt water, right? Well, he's got a super condensed pellet of vinegar So what happens when you toss that into salt water? Salt, water, vinegar, you get hydrochloric acid. So all the villains are just like running out of the aquarium going like, ah! The police are ready to capture them. This is a Batman that Alfred is a spy, not he doesn't work with or for Batman right now. He's trying to understand this new version of Batman. And he's outlined a bunch of Batman's temporary bases throughout Gotham. And he's like, well, he's committed to the bit. Here's one of the things that I love. You guys got to see this new version of the Batmobile because it is crazy. I want to talk about the Batmobile, and I want to talk about one other element of what they're doing with Batman. Okay, so Alfred finally sort of catches up and confronts this Batman, and he's like, all right, like, where can we go and talk? Like, he's like, you're in my Batmobile right now. He thought that he was just in like a little chamber in a, what do you call it? In a elevator shaft. No, that goes literally into this version of the Batmobile. It's a land mover, if you know that construction vehicle. This thing's like about 2 stories tall. It's so over the top. It's so over the top. And maybe he's got a smaller, Batmobile or a bike or something, but this is just great. He just like blasts out of this building in the biggest Batmobile you've ever seen. And it still has, almost a cow pusher in a bat shape. He's got a shield on top. It's a bat shape. It's hilarious. It's so over the top, but they're leaning into how fun that can be. Here's the other cool thing, though, about this Batman. Not a billionaire, just an engineer, okay? An engineer who grew up with about 4 close friends. Well, he meets them for like a regular poker game. Here are his 4 friends. Waylon, Harvey, Oswald, and Edward. These are his friends. These are his closest friends. Now, in the regular continuity, this is clearly Killer Croc, Two-Face, Penguin, and Riddler. Will these guys become villains in absolute Batman? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe some of them do. Would it be tragic for him to lose his sort of only and closest friends? Absolutely. Will that happen? Maybe not. What if he has some guys that like have some leanings towards not, more gray moral areas, but he goes up against new villains? That's what's kind of interesting to see here is like it plays with our expectations because we know some Batman history, but it doesn't mean that it's reliant on it. It could go in other directions. Oh, yeah, I supported that Kickstarter, so I've got the Zorro Man of the Dead. I don't know that I'd call it better than Batman, but the art is fantastic. Great art. Great art. Batman typically has like Kevlar plating in his cowl and on his chest, and this Batman does too. So basically, he's bulletproof. I wouldn't necessarily say explosion proof, and probably not large ammunition fire. Yeah, will Joker like corrupt some of these guys? I don't know. There's no Joker yet in this book, by the way. A big construction vehicle being 7 foot tall, 300 pounds, pure muscle. You'd think someone would put 2 and 2 together. Don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying it. I don't know. This Batman has like only just been around for a small amount of time. I don't know what measures he's taken to sort of protect his identity or not. For all we know, maybe the police find out. I don't know. What I like right now, because we're only 2 issues in, I like that they're playing with our expectations. I like that they're playing with conventions. And I like that he's got some new gadgets. That his cape can like have these sort of like hooks at the end that he can use to attack guys. His cape has a purpose that's a little different than what we've seen before. Another great book. Oh my God, was this a great week for comics? I was so excited to read my comics. Like, I blasted through these like the night that I got them, whereas sometimes I wait like a few days to get to them. Last week, we got a really cool reveal when the main character is Hisako. Hisako's friend Natsu, which means summer, and sure enough, she's Cyclops. That was the best thing of last week. Like when she fired a laser beam out of her one good eye, and then that makes it like bleed a tear of blood. Oh, disturbing, but awesome. That was the big thing last week. This week, Hisako and her friends continue to research into this cult called Children of the Atom, which seems to be like a weird sort of like death cult based on raising children that are mutants into like, believing in their way. Well, this one though, that goes, look, we get to see maybe where mutants come from, because this is the first mutant, Akihiro, which obviously must have some relation to Wolverine. This is not Wolverine, but, is he Wolverine's son? Is he Wolverine's father? I don't know. He says that he's the first mutant and that he's allowing the cult to use his blood and his abilities to create new mutants. Yeah, in the main universe, Akihiro is Daken, which is Wolverine's son. But here, he's saying that he's the first mutant. So, like, we can't count on what we know from the main universe being accurate here. We're just seeing, like, twists on these things. But how disturbing is that? Peach draws a couple things really damn well. Body horror and sexy girls. Look at that. I mean, like, that's cartoony and exaggerated, but so damn effective. That is just really disturbing to me, this image. And then we've got like, hey, kids, get some juice. I don't know. I love this like quick little reveal of where mutants might be coming from. But we also get an actual little battle here. We get Maystorm confronting her father that she isn't very close to, who's with this girl, Surge. And what do they both have? Electric powers, and we get a bit of an actual confrontation between two teenage mutants. I won't give it all away. The artwork looks great. The story gives us unexpected twists and turns. I love it. I love how creepy it is too, because it leans into Peach's interest in horror, stuff like that. Or before this, the new version of the Shadow King. Really effective. And I'll just say one thing that Peach does with her basically co-writer Zach is they always have like a lexicon at the back that'll teach you a little bit about Japanese culture, because the story is set in Japan and it uses a lot of Japanese culture and history. I'm going to sneeze. I'm really sorry, folks. This teaches us about Bunka, which is a school event. I won't give it away. It's fun to learn. It's really fun to learn. Could be an unreliable narrator. Yeah. This seems like something I would buy for my nieces to introduce them. It's a great starting point for telling you ideas about mutants in a totally different way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Surge, not Serge. Surge. The last book I read this week, I wanted to like, and you know what? I gotta admit, I didn't. I'll explain why. Because I love a lot of these creators. Tom Hardy is involved in this book called Arcbound. It's a 12-issue sci-fi satirical series, okay? The actual writers credited are Scott Snyder and Frank Thierry. From what I've been told behind the scenes, not by any of these people, but by like people in the know, it really is Frank doing the heavy lifting of writing this book. And Scott's overseeing a bunch of, in a producer role. Tom is more just sort of attached. And in this, they credit him as doing character development. In movies, you can have producers that don't have like fully defined roles. In comics, we've got such specific titles that we always use, and they don't always fit that well. For instance, colors seems kind of almost not fully descriptive of what colorists do anymore. You know, they're almost painters on this stuff. They're almost painters, but we just call it colors. Anyway, the story in brief is like, I guess at some undefined point in the future, we've got a huge company that uses these soldiers that they call mediators to go to planets and suppress colonists. And the main guy is, I guess, going to be played by, Tom Hardy if they make this into a show or a movie or something. He starts out by like questioning if what they're doing is right, even though he's sort of the leader of the team. But it's satire, but here's some of my problems. Okay, I'm just giving you a few ideas. The company that owns everything in the world is Xenotech. And they go around planet to planet mining the resources and basically killing tens of thousands of colonists to force them into being like cyborgs that mine forever. Pretty over-the-top stuff. And like this commanding officer is literally just doing drugs while he gives his men their marching orders. Okay, haha, evil company, got it. That could be relevant. That could be funny. But they're so cartoonishly over the top, you know? And that's even okay, to be honest. That's okay. But this main guy starts doubting his cause. He starts there. And of course, he's proven to be right because they betray him, okay? They betray him, and they're killing even more people than they need to. Well, where does that give us to go for the character? Like, he physically gets changed. I think he becomes basically a cyborg, but we'll see in issue 2 if that's right. But it would be so much more effective if he believed hardcore in the cause somehow and then got betrayed because he found out the wrong thing. But he doubts them from the beginning of this story. So that gives me very little for where he could go. That gives me very little range for the character to evolve. And I need something a little grounded there. Now, I think what they try to do to give him a bit of groundedness is they have him, married to his wife. But we just get 2 pages of them sort of like playing a game and he's distracted because of everything that's going on. That's not enough to ground him for me. I need a little bit more than that. And, his supposed work friend is almost cartoonishly evil too. I feel like cartoonishly evil is fine, but have some really funny satire there. And none of this really made me laugh. Frank Thierry has made me laugh a lot in previous books. He's a great writer. So I don't know where this sort of breakdown happened that it isn't connecting for me, but it isn't connecting for me. I don't think I'm going to continue with it. I hope it does change for the better. Maybe the first issue just had some kinks to work out. I don't know. Maybe it goes in an unexpected direction. I'm willing to give it all of that. I'm just saying for the first issue, the character didn't change much. The satire felt kind of very surface level because I think most of us are yeah, big corporations. None of us are going to say well, I love Amazon or Google is the best. Don't talk shit about Google. We're not like that. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know if this is a vanity project or not. I really don't know. I like everyone involved here. I think Tom Hardy can be incredible. He's done some great work. What was that book? What was that movie about Leonardo DiCaprio as a fur trapper that almost gets killed by a bear? Tom Hardy was the villain in that. He was fantastic. I'd almost be okay with it being on the nose if it was at least very funny or it had some character arcs that were still grounded and everything around it was kind of weird. Yeah, The Revenant. Tom Hardy's incredible in that one. Really, really good. I wish I had better things to say about it. I really do, because I respect the hell out of everybody involved. I sincerely do. It just didn't work for me. And all I can do is be honest with you guys about my opinions. But out of what came out this week, look, in general, I love the Energon universe. These were fun, not necessarily game changers. Fun, okay? Arcbound, it just didn't connect enough for me. I'm open to somebody explaining why it worked for them. But we had 3 that I would call absolute bangers this week. I would say that, like, Absolute Batman is a blast. Ultimate X-Men is incredible. But my pick for overall most enjoyable, most impressive book this week was Helen of Wyndhorn. Maybe that doesn't come as a surprise if you've been watching me, but that's what I can tell you about what came out this week. He was great on Legend. I've heard that. I didn't see that one. What else? I don't know. Anybody got any questions? It's been a little over 2 hours, so I'm probably about to wrap this up. I will mention this. Last week, I went on Bronze Age Nerd's channel after mine. He's got a YouTube channel that I enjoy. Him and Big B McFly, the comic book guy, Bronze Age Nerd, and Big B, and their and a couple other folks that helped them out. They ran a charity live stream this past weekend, and I contributed a little bit. I donated 2 pieces of art that fortunately did sell. Let me show you real quick. There we go. I donated a cover I drew for, oh, wait a minute. I've actually got them still here. What am I thinking? I don't need to show you that. I can just show you this. So I drew, there was a sketch cover by Skybound for a reprint of the Transformers by Marvel. And I did a riff on, it's actually Transformers issue 3 by Marvel, but instead of like Megatron being tied up by Spider-Man, I have Soundwave, and he's getting his cassette tape guts yanked out by Snake Eyes. So hopefully that was a fun riff. That sold, raised right around a couple $100, I think. And then I also drew this piece that I had shared like a month or so ago on social medias. I just drew my take on a Rogue and Gambit, and people seemed to like it, so I donated that, and that also went, I think, for like a couple $100, or at least close. It might have gone for less, but I was happy that I could donate to that. Yeah, 11 hours. Oh, Jay Smooth, you're the one that won this one, right? You're the one that won this one, because Bronze Age Nerd told me what you'd like for a remark, and I'll add that to the back here. Thank you. I don't know. I was proud of that, Chuck. Like, maybe that's not a lot compared to like a professional artist, but I was proud of it. Oh, and Chuck, I didn't see the final count on yours, but like first, I was going to get to that. Chuck is my friend, CK here, and he also did a charity stream across 2 days. He streamed for 2 days. I didn't see the final goal. I donated a little bit to that one of just my money because Chuck was raising money for a children's hospital. So, well, thank you, Jay Smooth. Thank you for donating to charity. And yeah, that was sort of my personal goal. Was I was like, okay, for just like the time it took, like if it hit 50, I'll feel good. If it goes for more than 50, I think that's plenty. That's plenty, you know. Oh, good. You did mean it in a good way. Thank God. You're really close to your goal. I'm so proud of you, man. Money is tight for people. Money is tight for people. I see it because my day job is selling people cars. Everybody needs cars, and I see a wide variety of different like income classes, but everybody needs a car. And I just see how tight money has been over the last several years here. Chrissy and I think used to eat out a little bit more, but eating out is so expensive, isn't it? It's ridiculous. But anyway, I was happy that I was able to participate and donate to charity with some art and donate to Chuck's with some money. Is that what it went to? Thank you, Jay Smooth. I'll draw the remark on the back. I'll do my best. Thank you very much for that. That's very flattering. You're moving to my area and you may need a car, well, feel free to reach out. Makes me a little nervous sometimes, doing that with people that I know in real life, but I have sold to several friends, and so far, everybody's happy with what they got. You're going to offer me $3 million for the Transformers cover, but you're going to buy the Bat tank. You got a tumbler, didn't you? You got a tumbler. Does anybody have a comic that came out this week that they would say, no, Chris, you're wrong? It wasn't Helen of Wyndhorn or Absolute Batman or Ultimate X-Men. The book of the week was fill in the blank. Seattle, the city itself isn't necessarily big, but the metropolitan area is big. And we have buses. We have a little bit of a train system, but not much. It's not as good as some cities. Oh, that makes me so happy, Chuck. And honestly, I think you guys have a really nice one for what it's worth. I would love to drive to even be transported in that. I sincerely do. Hey, cool. You got the Last Mermaid trade. Did you see the quote on the back? A little somebody here got quoted. That was nice. I covered your book of the week. Yep. Poop McBrown and the Poop Makers. Yep. Lived there before. The buses are good, but a car makes it easier. Yeah, almost necessary. You like JSA. I talked about that last week. I liked it, but I was a little overwhelmed by just how many characters are in it. I like the concept of generational superheroes that are almost more of a family, but I was a little overwhelmed by how many there were. DC versus Vampires 2 you like? Sometimes just adding something like supernatural or sci-fi to superheroes can make it an absolute blast. Black Sad, yes. Oh, my copy's too far away. I got my copy of Black Sad signed by Juanjo Guarnido at New York Comic Con this year. The Master. What a thrill it was. Oh, yeah, I've been talking about that when the issues came out. I loved the surprise of seeing how much artwork Dan did for issue 2 of The Moon is Following Us. Wasn't expecting that. Riley Rossmo's crushing it, but to see that Dan did almost half of the pages was a lovely surprise. They work well together. It fit the story. I'm very curious to see where it goes. Very curious. Yeah, I know. My quote wasn't really about Last Mermaid, but you know what? If you don't think that it was good, that's something you need to get mad at Derek for. Derek Kirk Kim put it there, not me. Let's see. Not new, but I started to read Meg and Mog and Owl. I don't know that one. Is that a British book, Joe? I don't know that one. I know Green Lantern's doing well. That's probably part of why they're doing that spinoff we were talking about in the news. I did not read it. I saw the art. I saw the book in a store once, and I flipped through, and it was interesting. Darren Aronofsky's hit and miss for me a little. I feel like he's got really actually good stories, but sometimes the humanity doesn't feel like it's there. I can't connect to a character. With that said, I would say another director that does sort of cold characters would be hold on, who did things like 2001 and Lolita and stuff? A director I absolutely love, but all of a sudden I'm forgetting the director's name. Somebody will have to tell me. That's a director who Kubrick. Thank you, Kubrick. I love Kubrick movies. I feel he keeps his characters at arm's length, but it works for me. I feel like Darren Aronofsky does that, and it doesn't always work for me. Sometimes it does. Good book. Yeah, where the book. Good book. Thanks, everybody, for saying Kubrick. I appreciate that. Stanley Kubrick, alias Poop McBrown, or McBrown the Poop Maker. very famous for being a farmer who farms poop. But, what he really wants to do is just get into real estate. The name's Poop McBrowner. And if there's one thing I know, it's real estate. If there's two things I know about, it's also real estate. One thing I do not know much about is poop. I know my parents gave me that name. All I can tell you is that was their choice, not mine. I don't know about poop. It's not the field that I'm in. The field I chose to be in is real estate. It's what I know, and I'm going to get you a good deal because I'm Poop McBrowner, real estate agent. Second volume of Mad Cave's Alex Raymond Flash Gordon reprints came out. Oh, I'd like to pick those up, actually. Alex Raymond, man. I got the first volume, and these versions have lightweight, glossy paper, super easy to read. Thanks, Circuitron. That wasn't on my radar, actually. I'll have to hunt those down because, damn, Alex Raymond is good. God damn, he's good. Let's see. Megmog and the Owl is a Fantagraphics thing. Author is one of few Eisners and Ignats. It's funny, but quite naughty, like a lot of Fanta stuff. Check it out. It'll make you chuckle. The only thing that makes me chuckle is when I see somebody getting a bad real estate deal, because I know that I could get them the best real estate in town. I can't necessarily get you clean poops or help you do a checkup on anything related to poops. My name is Poop Browner, that I will admit, but do I know anything about poops? Not really. I chose to study real estate. I've dedicated everything in my life to real estate. It's what I know, and I'm there. You got me in your corner. You got me in your corner, but you don't have me in your toilet. That's something you should talk to your doctor about. I'm not a doctor. I am a real estate agent. I'm Poop McBrowner. That's my new character. I think it's really going to go far. I think that's a 7-season TV show and 150 issues of a comics. That probably did sound a little bit Justin Roilandy. Sorry. That wasn't really what I was going for. I was just going for Poop McBrowner. Let's see. I heard there was a rumor that Darren Aronofsky was in talks with James Gunn to make a Plastic Man movie. I mean, I know that Darren Aronofsky likes comics. He famously worked for a long time trying to get Batman Year One made. So he'd probably be a good choice. Oh, yeah. No, this is going to Max. Don't you dare call it HBO. It's called Max. Get it right or get it out of your vocabulary. We call it Max. HBO is dead. Unless you're on cable, in which case it's still HBO, and we'd love your support. But if you're talking streaming, you call it Max. Yes, it has all of HBO's shows, but it is not HBO. It is Max. And that is our terrible marketing decision, and you will honor it. No, Kirkman's got a little bit of Kentucky twang. Chrissy questions my impression. Almost adapted Ronin and Wolverine and RoboCop. Yeah, he's been close on a bunch of things. Actually, now that I think of it, I think Darren Aronofsky was also really close to doing Daredevil, but they couldn't get it into development fast enough, and Marvel got the rights back from Fox. Something close to that. I mean, I won't go into too much detail because it's Chrissy's story to tell, but Chrissy's making some recovery from her pneumonia, but she's got something else that we found, and she's having a really tough time, to be honest. Chrissy's having a really tough time, so I probably should wrap this up and go up and take care of her, get her some dinner, and help out. But yeah, poor Chrissy. She's not doing great. Sacha Dhawan will be playing his version of the Master on Big Finish Audio. I like that actor. I could not tell you what the hell the story was in... Which Doctor was it that Jodie Whitaker played? The 13th? I've lost track of the numbers. I think she was the 13th Doctor. And her final episode had Sacha Dhawan as the Master. It had Daleks. It had Cybermen. It had time travel. I could not understand any of it. It was a mess. It was a mess. All right. I'm going to leave it there. That was a fun episode. Thank you for taking a few extra minutes to chat with me. I'm going to go back into the description and put in the order code for Silverhawks. Thank you, Ed Brisson, for taking time to talk to us. Thank you, Dynamite, for sponsoring this episode. They've also got Zootopia coming out. They're crushing it with the talent that they've got, the licenses. Just amazing. I'm going to make some edits, add some chapter breaks, and get something to eat. I hope all of you do as well. Tomorrow on this channel, guess what? It's time for a new trash movie bonanza. Jim made me watch one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So I'm going to strike back and make him watch a terrible movie. That's what this has become. It's become us torturing each other with bad movies. No, there will be a new episode on this channel tomorrow morning, and I am editing 3 episodes of Comic Tropes. So a lot of stuff coming to you folks soon. Wanted to plug that. I got to get going. Thank you all. Double salute. Keep reading comics. Bye.